motivate them to defend Ayn, to defend Atlas Shrugged publicly, to scream from the rooftops that this is a great book, what the hell are you reviewers talking about? They were silent, the businessmen were silent, the intellectuals were silent, everybody was silent. People with a public voice, for the most part, not all, but for the most part, were dead silent. Nobody defended her in print. This was worse than the negative, much worse for her than the negative reviews. Though she could stand, the silence was unbearable. She was lost in a desert of silence about what she knew was a great achievement. She knew that all sorts of people were reacting to it as a great achievement. Young people, people without a public voice. Public voices, silence. It did something permanent to Ayn. And I can understand why, and I hope you will understand why. It's true that as time went by, sales just skyrocketed, and edition after edition was published. She made a great deal of money from it. She became world famous. Didn't help. It didn't really solve the problem for her. She didn't get what she really wanted. She didn't get the public voices that she had a right to expect. Only now is she getting them. Now she is getting them, but it's a hell of a lot too late for her. She often said, I don't want anything but the response of top minds, and that's what she didn't get. And she said, when things did pick up, when finally it began to look like she was having an influence and people were beginning to respond, some even publicly, it was too late for her. She had pronounced her final verdict on the culture. And she said, she said, I don't know to whom I'm addressing myself when I write. I had a certain concept of my audience before, rational, intelligent people. As I see the culture now so differently, I don't know who to write for. And if I don't know who I'm writing for, I don't know how to write. And she never wrote another novel. She planned one, she tried, she couldn't do it. And she said, I'm not happy enough. By which she meant she had to have a sense that there were minds out there that she could reach. And she didn't have that for sure anymore. And in the years that followed, I saw her sink deeper and deeper into depression and rage, finally striking out vainly at a world that had disappointed her so bitterly. She had spent her life defending the men of ability, the men of achievement. Where were they when she needed them to speak up for her? She had always spoken up for them. They didn't speak up for her. And it was more than she could handle. And she had a right not to be able to handle it. In the years that followed, she found moments of happiness, of contentment. But that aspiration, that passionate aspiration that had moved her through all her days up until then, was gone. She never had the same fire that she'd had when we first met her, that she had all through the writing about this, that she'd had all her life. That fire was gone, that sense that everything in her life was devoted to one end, to this defense of the moral ideal, to the presentation of the moral ideal. She could do it through nonfiction, but she couldn't write fiction anymore. It seems as if there is usually a terrible price to be paid for genius. Perhaps if you search history, you'll find geniuses whose lives were not blighted by suffering, but you won't find many of them. Nietzsche said that the great man is the man who knows not how to live today, and that seems to have been true. And I wrote this in The Passion of Ayn Rand. One must wonder if Ayn's suffering was not in part the price she paid, granted other elements in her psyche, for her astonishing intellectual powers. Historically, it is the price that men and women of vast intelligence have often paid. Such men and women stand alone, cut off from the world by a sense of distance from other people that is not an illness and cannot be cured. With the first-hand blinding vision of the Creator, They endure the loneliness of seeing farther and more clearly than others see, of understanding what others do not understand, of achieving what others cannot achieve, of moving forward with a dedication and a certainty that others cannot grasp. They feel invisible to the world, and in many respects, they are invisible, as is every creative genius. During the 19 years of my friendship with Ayn Rand and during the years since, I have felt so many emotions about her. I felt intense love, I felt unforgiving anger, I felt indignation, I felt an overwhelming tenderness. I felt fear of her rages and delight in her presence and the greatest admiration of my life. And now on the 50th anniversary of Atlas, I think of those days between the completion of the manuscript and its publication. I think of Ayn's happiness and expectation. I think of the bitter disillusion that scarred the rest of her life. And something inside me twists in pain for her, and I feel tears coming to my eyes. It's not the way the story should have ended for her. It isn't the way it would have ended in an Ayn Rand novel. So while we celebrate Atlas Shrugged, as we should, as we celebrate its many triumphs, I think we should remember the price Ayn Rand paid for those triumphs. But we should also remember that she always said price was no object in the fight for one's values. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara, for those remarks and reflections. And I think what it says is that we should all try to live consistently with our values, that we should not only denounce those who deserve denouncing, but we should praise those who deserve praise.
Yes.
And I want to praise you for both you and Nathaniel for your remarks today and for the people who've come to this event. We don't have a whole lot of time, so I think I'm going to forego the questions. It's a little bit echoey in here, but Nathaniel and Barbara will be around for the rest of this reception and, of course, at the dinner tonight. And so if you have further questions and want to reflect with those who were there, this is your opportunity. Yes, Susan.
I would just say, I speak for everyone here. It was wonderful to hear the two of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Susan said it was wonderful to hear the two of you, and thank you. You both were good. Okay.